Hey and welcome to the first Doom Reimagined video, where I take a Doom level that disappoints and reimagine what it could be to see if we can help it reach its potential. This time I'm taking a look at Ultimate Doom's E1M3 Hell Keep, because let's be honest, Hell Keep is disappointing. It's the first level of Doom's third episode, the original final episode, and it isn't that good at all. It has some incredibly weak moments, empty rooms, and some weird balancing issues that can really punish newcomers. What should be a triumphant first step into hell is a huge fumble, but we can change that. But before we dive into this, let's go over some quick ground rules. I won't be deleting the level outright. The idea is to reimagine this level and work with the pieces here. It's not to create a whole new level from scratch. I'll be trying to stay faithful to the original intentions of the level where possible. And I won't be over editing. I will be making changes that I feel would slot perfectly into the 1993 release of Doom. So with all this in mind, I'll be breaking this video into two sections. The first part will be a playthrough of the original level, where I'll be outlining what I feel are the weak parts of the level that need focus. In the second section, I'll be playing through the reimagined level and explaining the changes made, justifying the alterations, and talking through the ideas and motivations that led to the changes made. I appreciate that some people are not going to like this video idea at all. Some people see the original Doom levels as untouchable, and some people probably even like this level. And to those people I say, this is just a bit of fun. I'm not saying this is the definitive way to do this. I'm not saying my ideas are right at all. All I'm doing here is having a bit of fun and trying to reimagine a level that I don't like, trying to carve it into something that I would probably prefer to play. But that's just my opinion. Let me know in the comments what you think of my reimagined level. Do you prefer the original Hellkeep? Do you prefer the console version of Hellkeep? And if you have your own ideas for what you'd want to put into this level to make it better, I'd love to hear them in the comments. But honestly, that's enough of that. Let's dive into the fun part of this video. Let's try and make Hellkeep better? ? So the first major thing that I want to change in this level is this opening room, or at least the encounter in this room. I've always felt that 3 imps on Ultraviolence was pretty pitiful for a room of this size, because it's not often in the Ultimate Doom that you get a room of this scale, and the fact that they only put 3 imps in here is such a letdown for me, because this is supposed to be hell. This is meant to be the introduction to this new portion of the game that's supposed to be, completely different from what you've seen before, and yet it's just such an empty encounter. Now, I don't plan to change this Cacodemon encounter purely because I actually kind of like this, because it kind of forces the player to use a pistol in a situation where they probably wouldn't want to use a pistol, and it's actually quite unique, especially for the first Doom. But I also want to change this room here. This for me is one of the most underutilized rooms in any Doom episode, and for me the problem is that there's nothing going on in here. As soon as you start crossing this bridge here, it starts sinking, and the thing is, once you sort of sink into the boiling blood, you can't really get another attempt at it. You've got to restart the level, and for me there's just no incentive to explore this area. It's just a big area that's nothing's happening in. There's nothing down here to interest the player. For me, it's just a waste of space, and yeah, you get a shotgun and some shotgun shells, but really, like I said, if you fall into that boiling blood, you're just being punished arbitrarily. So we're going to head into this room here. This is the third area of focus for me. What I'm going to be doing with this room, I think, I'm just going to be trying to make it more interesting, because, be totally honest, do you spend any time in this room? Do you look in this room? Do you explore it for secrets? There's absolutely nothing outside of that Cacodemon imp encounter, and it's a real shame. But then we come into here, and this is arguably for me one of the weakest parts of the first Doom game. This linear experience that you can't avoid, you can't skip. If you don't grab the shotgun shells, you will either have to use the pistol or the fists to get through this, and frankly, it's just tedious. It's not a nice encounter, it's boring, and frankly, it's the biggest slog in my opinion in this episode, and it comes in the first episode. So yeah, we're definitely going to be changing that up, and I'm also going to be changing up this area here, just because I like the imp encounter here. I think it's pretty interesting, but I do think that it's a bit dull having all the imps kind of crowded in that one room there, and there's no real skill to sort of shooting them through the door. To me, it's just kind of lazy, and in my opinion, it just kind of all adds up to a level that's just not that interesting to play through. I reckon most people who come to this level dive straight through it and never give it a second thought, and it's a real shame because this should have been so much better in my opinion, especially because it's the first hell level. But now what I'm going to do, I'm going to flip it straight over to the remastered level that I've made and the additions that I've made to try and make this level a bit more appealing to play through. So the first thing is that this opening didn't need to change. I've always liked the way that you raise up into hell. I've always thought that's a really cool visual, and you can immediately see here that I've added a few more enemies, not too many, but there are a variety of enemies here, including zombie men and shotgunners. Now, the reason that I kind of went down this avenue was because I feel that this opening room, it just lacked a punch in the original version. And by putting in all these different enemies, the player kind of has that adrenaline rush at the start where they see the shotgun in front of them, they can run and grab it, and if they take out the shotgunners, they can grab their shotguns as well. There's plenty of ammo, there's plenty of room to maneuver in. This is what this environment really should be used for. And here's the thing, if the player decides to burn through all the shotgun ammo before coming to these Kako demons, which were here in the original, then they'll have to face them with the pistol, which was the original intention. So the original idea is still alive and well here, but I was just trying to make it a bit more engaging, a bit more exciting for the final episode, in my opinion. At least that's what I was trying to do. Now you'll notice that I've made this a red door, which means that you can't go this way right now. So instead you have to head out this way. And you'll immediately notice that there's a lot more going on in this area of the level. So there's actually 2 new islands here with imps on them, and the idea is that these imps are guarding items of various values. So you can see there's a green armor. You can see that on the other island there's a rocket launcher. Now, it's not immediately clear how you're meant to get to the rocket launcher, so it's supposed to intrigue the player. It's supposed to make the player want to explore this area a bit more, just to kind of see what they can get from that rocket launcher. But you can also see I've put a pinky in the blood there. This switch doesn't do anything right now, but as we make our way across, you can see I've changed the way that this bridge behaves. So now, instead of the bridge sort of dropping down behind the player and staying down, I made the decision to kind of only have 2 sectors drop. I think that this is a good way for the player to learn about running, for the player to sort of train themselves to move quickly to grab certain objects. I also carefully thought about this little island here, so if the player ends up on here, they get a shotgun shell, but they also kind of get left exposed to all the imps around them, so the imps in front and the imps on either side, which I think makes it an interesting spot. As you can see here, there's a cage where the imps here can shoot you through the last room. So that's the main reason why I put the imps in that cage. But you can also see there's a chain gun at the back there. And the idea again is that you're putting seeds into the level for the player to want to explore. Now, getting the rocket launcher, there's 2 ways that I designed this so that the player can do that. Either you can go around the back there, which we'll do in a second, or the more advanced players will just run across and grab it this way. But when you head round this way, if you look at the bottom there, the blood stains on the bottom of this wall don't quite match up with this wall here. So the idea is that novice players can grab the rocket launcher. I've also put some items behind here because I always thought it was really weird that there wasn't anything back there. Not even like any ammo or health for the player to find. So as we make our way through the red door here, you'll see that on the left hand side, the room is by and large the same, but on the right hand side, there is a soul sphere up there. But the player's meant to be working out how they're supposed to get that, and obviously you can see I've left the door to the right hand side there, which would normally take you to the long linear corridor. So that obviously has something to do with it. But there's a new door here, and this is the whole new section of this level that I decided to bring in. So this is directly inspired by a room from the console version of Hell Keep, and in that version you have to climb the steps to get the yellow key and then you get sort of ambushed. So I've tried to recreate that here, although I have made it a little less stressful for the player by throwing a bunch of ammo and some med packs around the arena, so that when all the monsters do start pouring out like this, there are things that the player can do to sort of limit the impact of this. Now, the idea behind this, in my opinion, is that having that linear pathway with just the pinkies is not memorable at all, but if you put a room like this in for the player, they have the option of fighting these monsters or just absolutely legging it. They can, if you're fast enough, you can get to the yellow door and you can shut it behind you and you never have to deal with all these monsters. Or the player can use any of the different areas in this arena to fight the monsters, so there are plenty of options being made available to the player. And not just that, in all of the holes where the monsters come out of, there's ammo, there's armor, there's health. The idea is that the player is never left short, and in my opinion, I'm trying to go against what the original Hellkeep did in that regard, because I do want the player to be able to actually defend themselves without having to resort to the fists. But as you can see, when we go inside the yellow door here, this room is by and large the same, except for the fact that on each side there's now cages with imps. So instead of having the imps all confined in that one little cramped space in the next room, I thought it would be more fun to fight them sort of in this space, because you can move around, you can sort of dodge their fireballs. But if you try rushing ahead, you see the pinkies from that linear corridor have been moved into that little area there. And what's interesting is that because of the structure here, these pillars were actually here in the original version. You can actually sort of guide them into them and you can just shoot through the pillars. So there's a lot of scope for using the level to help the player to overcome what might be perceived as difficulty spikes. So you can see I've taken out the rocket launcher from this secret, but I have put a switch in there, and the idea is that if the player hits the switch, various things will happen in the level. So if the player goes back through the level, you'll see that this door has now opened up, which leads to a teleporter, which leads to the soul sphere, which, you know, I think that's a reasonable prize for the player coming back and keeping their eyes open. But not only that, if you head down inside here, a secret cavern has opened up, and the idea here is that if this is more for the observant players, the players who are kind of thinking about that chain gun still and how they may potentially get there, if you keep your eyes open and just explore the level a tiny bit, you end up making your way through to this cage where you can grab the chain gun and you can get a better look at how the imps can sort of see out into that blood area from earlier on. But again, I don't think this is a super definitive version of this level, but what I was trying to do is to combine what I felt was some of the better aspects from the console version and bring in just more interesting uses for the rooms, because I feel like a lot of the rooms in the PC version of Hellkeep just underutilize the space and don't really offer anything truly memorable. I'd love to see ideas from people in the comments, people watching this, how they would improve this level, because I think as we've done with this level, it's possible to keep the base level but just improve aspects of it to just make it a more fun overall experience, so that it's not just a level that you want to rush through every time as quickly as possible, but there is actually a bit of fun in the rooms. So let me know what you guys think of my version of this level. Do you think it's better than the original, or do you prefer the original? Go on, let me know in the comments. I am ready to hear your critiques, and I'd love to hear how you would improve this level. Thank you very much for watching.